Did we or did we not make this episode just so Johnny Cakes could come back? Maybe. Hi, I'm Rachel.
And I'm Nick.
And this is a director's cut of Without a Recipe, Illusion Cakes. Without a Recipe is a video that started at BuzzFeed where they did Without a Recipe bread. And that video was truly a spoof of Great British Bake Off. And when Try Guys started their own company and I came along 5 years ago, that was the first episode I saw. And I think I told Keith, I was like, I think we could make a show out of that. And then at some point, Keith was like, well, why don't we do another episode for our channel? Keith and I really made Without a Recipe holiday pies together. The budget was so low that we had to borrow Good Mythical Morning's kitchen. And that video was like a huge success. It combined like my two interests, because I'm a pretty solid home baker. We just had a really great time. And so the next time Without a Recipe came up, we decided to do a whole season. The reason this is a series and a TV show is because Devlin has really structured the episodes as such and given that structure to other editors. And a whole host of people have edited it over the years, but Devlin has really outlined that. He set the scoring, he created all the graphics, and he really continues to like evolve the format. I would say Without a Recipe originally was a collaboration between Keith, Devlin, and I. That first season, we shot in basically a warehouse with barking dogs outside. It wasn't soundproofed.
You had just come back from maternity leave and it was like, they want to do this now. Like you had to like get right to it.
Yeah, so I came back from maternity leave. They were like, yeah, well, we want to release this when CPMs are high in December. So that was September and it was December, and the show takes like 4 or 5 weeks per episode to edit, much less to produce. The fastest I've ever produced a season of Without a Recipe is 2 weeks, which is incredibly fast to find all those experts to line it up. Normally I take 2 or 3 months to produce it. Finding good chefs is like the name of the game, and sometimes it comes easily and sometimes it doesn't. There have been ideas that I really wanted to execute and I couldn't find a chef for it.
You pick possible things they can make and you work on narrowing it down with the guys and based on the chefs you find?
I pick possible things they can make. Then I work on finding chefs, and then I print base recipes for each season, and I start mapping out the schedule months in advance because I need recipes that will be fast mixed with recipes that will be long, or else it won't work production-wise. So you really have to like culinarily map it out.
I could say as an office mate of yours, when you start prepping, I mean, you are doing so much prep work and phone calls before the cameras roll that you're so in it that I almost just have to step back, but I admire it. Like you're reaching out to so many chefs and possible judges, and you're really working with the guys from what I've seen to like figure out what they're doing.
Some of the guys have an idea about what could drive their creative. I'll never forget Keith coming up to me and being like, well, what if I did cinnamon raisin for everything? And then other guys, Zach, really have to be handheld through each thing. Zach is not easily inspired by food. And so he really hems and haws and goes back and forth on what he wants to do, and nothing feels right because food for him has always been such a source of pain and restriction and conflict in his life that he's not excited by an idea for cooking until he is. So it just takes a lot more work to get there. So about 2 weeks out from the season, I'll get the guys creative, which comes easier or harder depending on which guy you're doing. And I'll make them start to think about what they're gonna make. And they give us, you know, a whole list of ingredients, what they wanna make. We put everything they need and lots of things they don't need in there.
Do you have to sort of rein in their craziness with their ideas?
No, Eugene put blood in cinnamon rolls, and Zach made a book based on group masturbation. I don't think I've reined in anything.
That's true.
So, Illusion Cakes.
How did you come up with this? Was it Johnny?
I knew I wanted to bring Johnny back. Some of our most popular episodes of all time have been cakes and ice cream cakes. And nothing seems harder than hyper-realistic cakes or illusion cakes.
Yeah. Are you a fan of these baking shows?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've watched every season of Great British Bake Off at least twice. I watch everything Claire Saffitz makes. I'm on New York Times Cooking.
With all the things you're balancing, I always notice you're really enjoying it. Like you're, as we get closer to where you're like, I still haven't found this chef, or I'm still finding this judge, but like, you just have an energy to.
I love it, and it's a really fun puzzle, and we're trying to do something different every year. You know, this past year we did the live finale. We may do that again.
I'm gonna ask you the question that I get asked about the show.
Yes.
Have they really not looked at a recipe?
They really haven't looked at a recipe. It doesn't serve them, it doesn't serve the show. The guys and I are all working towards the communal goal of making a great TV show. If they were cheating and looking at recipes, it wouldn't work. And even if you had made this once in the past, bakers don't bake without recipes. Our experts are doing the demo with a recipe because baking is an exact science. It's amazing to me that the guys get as much success as they do.
Me too.
I've always wanted to make a Rachel reacts to the YouTube comments on Without a Recipe video because I want to clap back against you.
Oh.
My big thing that I want to yell into the void is they have enough time. There's this phenomenon where our audience feels the need to defend the guys against their own show. First of all, they have enough time. Second of all, these guys are like liquid. If I gave them 15 minutes, they'd make something happen. And if I gave them 15 hours, they would fill it with jokes. It wouldn't make the bakes any better. So I always see those comments and I'm like, they have what they need. They just don't have any skills. It's okay though. It's okay, because you know what we're not making? We're not running a bakery. We're making a TV show.
When did you film this versus when it came out? Like, what's the timeline there?
So every year, we start filming them earlier and earlier because every year we take more and more time with the edits. So that first year, like you said, I came back in September and we filmed it in October to release in December, and it wasn't enough time. This season we filmed in early to mid-August to release in mid-November through December. And we'll do something similar this year where we film well in advance and we leave a lot of time for post.
This is all interesting for me to hear because I haven't been on too many Without
You
a Recipe
always
sets
vacate the office.
Zatchler was a lean crew of 4 or 5 because we wanted to just be in the background. But how big is the crew for War? You prep for a couple of days where we build it out, right?
Yeah, we usually pre-light and build for 2 days ahead of time. We usually have a crew of like 25 to 30. Depending on the day. And we're shooting everywhere. We do pre-thoughts in the podcast room. We're obviously working in the kitchen. We have all the food and art supplies set up sort of behind the kitchen. We're doing beauty shots and judging in the studio. And we block shoot, which means we do all the pre-thoughts for all the episodes at once. We cook through almost everything that will keep or hold in advance and then try to block shoot judging to respect people's time. We'll pair stuff that cooks right away with something that cooked before. So for example, we probably do boba one morning, judge boba, and then judge illusion cakes that afternoon. To prep for these, this was the information you were floored about.
I did not know this, folks.
I bake every recipe ahead of shooting the episode. So if we're gonna make illusion cakes, I go home that weekend or that night and I make an illusion cake so that I then, while I watch them and am focused on what they're saying, what the time is, if we're on schedule, what the camera work is, I can like just sort of inherently know where they've gone wrong. And that way, then when I shoot the demo 2 weeks later and Johnny and I are at a different kitchen talking, I can be like, oh, and how much baking soda do you put in? Because I watched Zach put 6 tablespoons in. I don't have a scriptie taking notes while they bake, and there are no edits before I go and work with Johnny. So I just need to either have the time to take notes or I have to remember it. And baking the recipe ahead of time just like gives me the muscle memory because it's all just in my head. I just remember it. I would say this was only shot in 2 days. That's not so bad. We made cakes on one day. We wait a few days. We come back with the frozen cakes. They had to make their frostings and start decorating and stuff, and that took a whole nother day.
Wow.
So I set up the challenges and I give them enough time
Yeah,
to
yeah.
do each thing. But Zach will always say, like, who watches the watcher? Because I do change the time. If they're doing really well and there's no pressure, I'll shorten it. And if they're doing really poorly and they could save something and they're just freaking out at the end, I'll lengthen it. So Zach's making a spooky book, like the Book of the Dead.
I know that reference.
Laughed so hard, I cried, because what Zach is doing here is making something that looks like nothing. It looks like nothing that exists in this world. I was just laughing, crying. And I truly am like Tyra Banks in Zach's corner. I am always rooting for him. I'm like trying to get him there. And he truly made something that looked like nothing. Look at this. This doesn't look like a book.
No.
Have you ever seen a book? Look at this though. This doesn't look like a book.
No.
Here I am crying.
Aww.
I was just crying because it doesn't look like anything.
No, it's just a square.
It doesn't look like a cake.
So weird.
What gets almost cut out of this episode too is his book fell over. So Keith made 2 feet, right? You can, if you're paying attention to this episode, you can see it. Zach's book is falling all the way over. So Keith takes his less good foot, sacrifices it, and puts it behind Zach's book. So look, his foot is going behind the cake, his ruined foot.
Through.
Keith always helps other people.
He gives a hand and a foot.
And then poor Eugene here. He wanted to be disqualified. He wanted to give up because if he can't serve something perfect, he doesn't want to do it.
Right.
You just have to work with them to like encourage them to like keep going. There's quite a bit of like actual cheerleading to do. Sometimes I can tell who's gonna win by the time they're done cooking.
Okay.
Like for this, it was very clear that Keith would win.
Without
tasting.
You just have a vibe.
And they often will be like, Mom, come taste, Mom, come taste, and I'll taste along the way.
Okay.
I had tasted Zach's and I knew how chemically and bad it was. Eugene just had to scrap his face for a fetish hood. I don't know. And then Keith's foot looked like a pretty perfect foot.
Yeah.
It takes 2 or 3 hours to do a complete judging, usually. I sort of walk them through it on the day. I'll have them do intros, and then each of the guys does their presentation. I usually watch the clock and try to time the guys to 15 minutes after their presentation is over, because judging is usually the most condensed. I'm usually trying to like rush us through. After the judges taste everything and we do a little deliberation, I'll ask them if they sort of each know what kind of order they would rank the guys in. We'll see if there's consensus among them, and then I'll weigh in if it's not clear. If there's an episode where it's like a little bit here or there, I'll consider what's happened otherwise during the season.
Right.
I know what we can pull from the edit to make them to like justify the decision basically, and then I'll coach the judges on what we do. Sometimes I'll try not to let them get 4th place if I suspect they're really sad. Check out mac and cheese. They're usually not really sad though in any way whatsoever. Nick will agree with me. Above all else, we just don't want to disappoint Keith. When Keith is honestly like truly disappointed, it's the worst.
Well, thanks for walking us through that.
Yeah, thanks for watching the longest episode of all time. I'm like, Bachelor Party should have been longer. That was like 48 minutes.
It's so funny because in my head, Bachelor was like an hour. It just felt so long, but then it zips by in 25 minutes. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this, and maybe we'll do it again, or maybe an editor reacts.
Tell us what episodes you want to see next. Comment below.
Right. All right.
Bye. Didn't know what bukkake was until this episode. I had to Google it. I didn't know.